Good morning to everyone. I kindly ask you to sit down. We have simultaneous translation equipment outside, so feel free to get your phone. We have English, Portuguese translation, so I'd like to welcome everybody online as well. And it's very good to see you here at the Aya Hub. That was indeed set up for this, that we connect, we get receive people like you and content. I am Isabel Ferreira, Executive Director of IA Institute. It's a pleasure to have you here today. This event is of high importance, the ST COP, that brings important topics for discussion, and it puts the discussion of Brazil as a main actor of the climate change globally. We have brought together leaders of the private sector that are committed with us. This is of extreme importance. We talk about the action agenda, a positive agenda, and agenda that really brings results both for the climate agenda as the private sector. To start off, Patricia Ellen, I'm going to call her to the stage. She is our CEO of Latin America STEMIC. She's president of Aya Hub and Aya Institute. So welcome, Patricia. You have the floor and to do the welcoming and the opening of the event. Thank you very much, Isabel. I'd like to thank, it's an honor to have you here at Aya. This hub was set up and created for this. We are completing the 2 years, and we put this hub in this complex to show that we can walk the talk in the business. We only have one pathway, that is either the survival or opportunity to create a new economic development model that can be positive for the business, people, and nature. So here you are in a space that the building, we have over 19 species of plants, we have certification of the V4, and we have several uses of reuse of water, circular economy, we have solar panels, we have a vegetable garden, and many things, and just on 3 floors. So imagine what we can do throughout Brazil, which is the largest country that all the assets that the world needs. In a world that has growing geopolitical tensions, where the fight for climate, energy, and food, we can deliver and integrate in 3 fronts with a model of collaboration that is explanation. At IO, we have over 100 member countries that work together to accelerate this transition in 5 transition models. Food safety, solutions coming from nature, generative materials for circular economy, sustainable and sustainability, and energy systems. We are talking about all this, and we are indeed, we're really working in this direction, but we do need to accelerate, speed up, and optimize efficiency so that all the managers can, or the directors can actually make it happen. SPCOP is a pride and joy, of course. Thank you for your trust, Davi, as well. I'd like to thank the president, and this issue brings to the world today is a huge opportunity. Like the G20 is for G20, we have a mobilization in the private sector, and the COP in an active form in the long term, work and to show the value of the business that we have in this transition of a low carbon economy. So if we do not close this, we really hope that all the 80% of the individuals that are great leaders in this field, and you will bring solutions for this. We began breakfast with Doug, who will be with us, and the president of COP said that this is an action copy. We need concrete cases, and they are here in this auditorium. Thank you very much. Davi, I'll pass you the floor to begin our event. Thank you very much.
E começando realmente com a abertura oficial, depois
For
da
the
Patrícia, eu
official
chamo Davi
opening after
Bontempo, nosso
Patrice, I
superintendente
call
de meio ambiente
Davi
e
Bontempo,
sustentabilidade da
Superintendent
CNI,
of
o Mussa,
CNI for
nosso grande
Sustainability,
head share
and
da
our head
SBCOP, para a
share
gente
of
fazer uma
B
abertura
Corp to
oficial
do an
e a palavra
official
de vocês,
opening
fiquem à
and
vontade.
Vai lá, Davi, comece você. Vamos lá.
okay, Davi.
Bom, primeiro,
You
muito bom dia
can
a
begin.
todos, né?
Good
Sempre uma
morning to
satisfação
everyone. It is a huge
aqui ver casa cheia,
satisfaction
com
to be here
pessoas
to
tão
see full house people
qualificadas
that
que
are
possa, né,
qualified
fazer esse
in this
encontro hoje de
respect
high level
to have
meeting.
this high
É
level
uma
meeting.
oportunidade que a
It
gente
is
teve
an
após, né, o
opportunity that
lançamento
we
da
have after
iniciativa,
the launching
né, e
of the
sempre
initiative,
surpreende, né, pela
and it
qualidade
also
dos stakeholders, das
surprises
pessoas que
the
estão aqui
quality of the
sempre envolvidas,
stakeholders
né? A
that
gente
are
viu
here
isso também no
involved.
lançamento,
We saw
é uma
this in the
segunda-feira depois
launching.
de
It's a
Carnaval,
Monday
e a gente
after
conseguiu
Carnival,
ter aí uma
and
presença
we had the
bastante
presence, a
relevante.
very
Isso para mim é
relevant
um grande
present, and
indicador,
this is a
né, do
great
tamanho e do
indicator of the
potencial que
size and
essa
the
iniciativa
potential
vem assumindo,
of this
né? Sempre que a
initiative.
gente
Now, every
faz essas
time
reuniões, a gente
we
tem aí
have these
sempre uma
meetings,
melhora,
we
sempre
have an
uma robustez
improvement
maior, sempre o
and a
fortalecimento
robustness and
de
the
cada
strengthening
iniciativa.
of each
Agradecer a
of the
Patrícia.
initiatives. I'd like to thank Patricia to host this event at Ahaya Musa as well, that is leading all this initiative, all the shareholders here present and those represented. And this gives a relevant quality to our event. Paul as well, he will bring several insights. And we talked a lot about this yesterday, and certainly today we will proceed with this conversation. And I'd like to say that CNI has the support of this initiative, and the idea is to strengthen this. It's quite new. Musa says that we will make mistakes, but the idea is get things right, learn with our mistakes, and so that we can proceed and improve this initiative. Now, it's an initiative that embraces several topics that are broadly connected both with the negotiations of the COP and global stock taking. So it's important to maintain this coherence as we maintain with respect to these initiatives. As mentioned by Patrice, it's an implementation initiative. This is the main focus, but it is an opportunity of working the showcase and show how the companies, industry, and the representatives of such are contributing to low carbon emissions and have a significant influence when we talk about negotiations. Now, the idea is to broaden the participation of the private sector and increase the engagement with this. And I think this initiative does this very well, adding more and more stakeholders that are positive internationally wise, because we say we do not have borders, because the global agenda, irrespective of what happens in geopolitical wise, the agenda continues to maintain its focus to reducing emissions. I now pass the floor to Musi. Thank you, Davi. It's very symbolic to be here indeed. And in the last 3 years, we have been participating in the B20, and and it was amazing for me that Paul also followed this last year, how the private sector could influence the discussions in the public sector, the government, G20. The success that we had influencing G20, as Patricia said, puts the SP COP standing. So look at this initiative. As was mentioned, we are helping the public sector through an organization. And what I've learned in these last months at Copy, we did not lack resources help to raise capital. There's not, there are, many companies wanting to participate, but there's a bit of disorganization. Things are kind of pulverized. So, like things that were done during the COP, there was an evolution indeed. But what we did now is to copy the B20 success model to organize the private sector and have a more active voice together with the discussions that happened and the copy, as Paul mentioned. There is nothing better than Brazil. For example, we have characteristics, and if the world was what Brazil is today, we might not be in the situation that we are in today. Of course, Brazil has historical reasons because of its nature. We have a number of issues, but a lot of good things. So, nothing better than starting with this initiative in Brazil. Thank you very much, CNI, for being the host of this process and embracing all this story, history, and different from B20 and learning from B20. We put it in the board of SBCOP, the what is CNI co companies that CNI does throughout the world. It's an initiative that arose like when I go to Australia and I'll go to Turkey in the next copy. So it is not only a Brazilian initiative. It starts here in Brazil. Innovation comes from Copy Brazil to begin with, but it is indeed something much broader that involves hundreds of countries. So talking to Gilberto Mazzoni in the beginning, I am quite impressed. I'm very overwhelmed with the number of companies, individuals that want to participate. For those, it wasn't a full-time job. It's actually, for me, it's becoming a full-time job. Now it is looking at what we're doing. It's a huge mission. Yesterday, when I was with Paul, very briefly, virtually, because he's in Brasilia, he says that you have the opportunity to do something huge and to put the bar at another level. And the fact of Brazil be leading this, you have a lot of credibility to do this. So it is not only one COP, obviously, that we will solve all the issues. We have to create. If you ask me what's the metric of the private sector of success of SP Copy looking ahead, we want to deliver three things. One of the deliveries is a recommendation. We have 8 task forces led by 8 large high-level CEOs in Brazil that are calling CEOs from other countries to come together. They have to deliver a recommendation by task force until July this year. These recommendations will be used to influence the COP negotiators to go to the pathway that we think is correct. This is a very clear product. A second product that will deliver is a showcase. What is exactly a showcase? It is a curatorship of projects worldwide of the private sector that can help in battling climate changes, that will cover the blue zone, what the world and the private sector has to show to the public sector, irrespective of uh, public or uh, initiatives. And it's difficult to select. We have received over 200 plus projects. So it is very interesting because there are that projects that come from the whole world. It's got to be scaled so that we can show the pathway or things that we really can do. It's not a 1 2 year project. And the third point is to launch a big project until copy in each of these groups so that they can do this launching. The idea is that as becomes pervene, it will help in the negotiation agenda and it will show the pathway and incentivize the governments what the private sector is doing irrespective of public policy. So we have to have the support of the company, civil society, so that we can contribute towards this. Those who do not know us come and understand how we work. So enroll to participate. We have a lot of consulting companies, big ones with us. We see Deloitte here, and also McKinsey, Systemic, BCG, Accenture. Everybody's here with us, and many others. So it's not by the lack of knowledge or the lack of having uh, capable people. You have big CEOs with us. Half of them, Schneider is here as well. So we have everything to do an excellent work, and the success here is SB COP become a reference to the world sector in this pathway to show this to the public sector. 80% of this comes from the private sectors. They have to participate in creating a solution, not only with respect to discussion, but show what do we have to do. I'd like to thank Paul and also say that Paul accepted those who did not know who Paul Pullman is. I'm a super fan of Paul. He was my boss at Unilever, my direct boss. He was at the top of the chain. And he is an individual who has an amazing knowledge and an amazing will to make a difference. So every conversation I have with Paul, I had breakfast this morning with him. I'd like to sort of record the conversation because you learn a lot with Paul. You have a way of communication. He has a way of communicating, very articulated and interesting matter, and a very practical view. Paul accepted being the ambassador of SPCOP. So this even gives more credibility to our program. I'm going to use Paul indeed as a reference, as coach, mentor, to advance this project. We will have the opportunity to discuss things with him and hear him here with respect to what we have to do and to advance the agenda that everybody here knows the importance of it. So we're in a difficult here. There's a clear change in the American politics that can reflect here on us, and we need the support of the private sector to make this happen. So I once again would like to thank uh, somebody's telling me that Dan is coming in online. So I'm first going to call Dan to participate with us because he's limited in time. So, Dan, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Okay, let me just leave because he's behind me so you all can see him. Okay, now I'd like to call Dan. He couldn't be here in presence. I had breakfast with Dan. He had breakfast with me and Patricia and Paul, and then another person arrived to speak to them. He had two breakfasts on the same morning, and now he's traveling. So his life is not quite simple indeed. And I'm going to say that those who invited me or indicated me for this role was Dan. He invited me to be part of the energy transition. So we have a great team here, Andre as well. We know Andre. I've known him for a number of years since he was ambassador in Japan and then India. We have Anatoni. We have Dan as well as a high level chair. So we have a first class team that know each other and that really are in aligned. So Dan, you have an amazing opportunity to make a difference as we all. So, Dan, thank you very much for your participation and
Bom dia a
we'll hear
todos,
you.
espero que
Good
estejam
morning
me
to
escutando.
everyone. I think you're muted. Sorry, I think you're muted.
Eu aqui não estou mais.
I'm not muted. I'm not muted, please. Just a second, please.
Me escutam agora?
Can you hear me
Legal.
now?
Muito bom dia a todos.
All
É
right.
um prazer
Welcome,
estar conversando
everybody.
com
Good
vocês.
morning. It's a
Infelizmente,
pleasure to
não,
be
não vou
addressing,
estar
talking
aí
to
com
you.
vocês presencialmente,
Unfortunately, I couldn't
mas
join you
a
in
gente está
person,
conversando em diferentes encontros
but
aqui,
we've been having
tentativamente,
conversations in
com
different
todos,
meetings,
e
right?
espero que a gente possa colher as opiniões, as
And hopefully we can
informações,
collect
para que a gente
insights, your
possa fazer um
opinions,
bom trabalho.
and do some good
Eu estou
work.
aqui agora com esse novo chapéu,
I am wearing a new
tentando
hat
ajudar a agência, a agenda climática, de
to try to
ação
help
climática.
with
Esse é
the
o
climate
grande
action agenda.
objetivo
This is the main
dessa função,
purpose of
e é a
this
gente
position.
caminhar para que aquilo que foi acordado em
And let's work
Paris
together
há
to make
cerca
sure
aí de
that
11
the
anos
Paris Agreement
ocorra
signed
da melhor
11 years
forma
ago
possível
will be
e
fulfilled
com a
the
maior
best way possible
intensidade,
and
eficiência e
as
rapidez
intense,
possível.
as efficient, and
Eu
as
tenho
quick as
aprendido
possible.
bastante nesses dias aí, desde do anúncio do meu
Since
convite aí para essa função,
my
que muito me
position was
honra,
announced,
de que
I've been
existe um
learning a
sem
lot,
número
and I'm
de
honored to be taking this
pessoas,
position.
instituições,
There are endless
empresas,
people,
prefeituras,
governments,
estados, além da
institutions, companies,
representação
and
dos países,
states,
que obviamente é muito
plus
importante, mas que
countries
tem o
representatives,
embaixador André e na
and
Anatone
Ambassador
e em outras
André,
áreas um trabalho
Anatoni.
bastante forte.
They
O
are all
escopo aqui
working
do Champion é muito mais na
tirelessly.
sociedade não governamental.
The champion
Eu
scope
tenho
is more
visto que há
focused on
sem número
NGOs.
de iniciativas e de recursos
There are several
fabulosos e que a gente
initiatives
pode,
and
sim,
amazing
continuar a
resources we
fazer a
can tap
diferença.
into in order to
Claro que a
continue
gente
moving
sempre
the
olha essa
needle.
questão do copo meio cheio, meio vazio,
We
mas
have to
quando a
look
gente
at
olha
the issue
o que
of
foi feito
whether the
nesses
glass
últimos
is
10,
half
11
full,
anos,
half
está já
empty,
fazendo
okay.
uma grande
But when we look
diferença
back
em
11
relação
years,
que a
I
gente
believe
não
that we are
atinja uma
making a
situação
difference.
indesejada,
We are not going
de não
to
retorno para as questões que a
get
gente
to a
ainda
point
pode
of no
trabalhar. Claro
return.
que ainda
We
falta
still
muito
can address a
e
few
é
things.
parte do escopo dessa
Of course, a
função
lot of work to
dinamizar,
do,
incentivar,
and
difundir
my role
conhecimento entre a
is to
sociedade não
spread
governamental para que
knowledge
a gente
among
chegue lá. E,
NGOs,
obviamente, o
and in order to
trabalho
get there.
da CNI, do
And
SBCOP, do
CNI's
Mussa,
work,
do Davi, de
SB
todas as
work,
equipes que
Mussa's
estão
work,
aí. Eu
Davi's
não estou
work,
vendo
the
quem
work
mais
of
que está
all the
aí
teams that are
no
here
palco, se
today.
tiver
I don't
alguém,
see
o
who else is
Roberto
on
Muniz, o
stage,
presidente
but
Albani,
Roberto
enfim, todo mundo que
Muniz,
está
President Alban,
direcionado para esse trabalho.
all of you
É um
dedicated to this
esforço
work
que
are
vale a
making a lot
pena
of
e que é
effort,
muito
and your
importante e
effort is
fundamental.
worthwhile,
Eu
is
gosto de
essential.
pensar sempre em desenvolvimento socioeconômico, é algo que
I
eu
like
falei
to
muito
think
na
of
época
it
do
from
B20,
a
falo muito
social,
onde eu ando,
environmental, and
e
economical
acho que a gente
standpoint.
tem que pensar dessa forma aqui
We
no
have to
ambiente
think
da
this
ação
way
climática.
when
É
it comes to
claro
climate
que é
action.
bom fazer aquilo que é certo,
Doing
mas
the right
mais
thing is good,
importante,
okay, but more
essas ações
importantly,
climáticas viabilizam
these
a
climate
continuidade do
actions will
desenvolvimento
enable
socioeconômico. Por outro lado, a
continuity for
aceleração do
economic
desenvolvimento
development.
socioeconômico tem gerado
And the acceleration of social and
situações
economic
críticas
development
para o
is
planeta,
rather creating
mas a
critical
gente tem
issues for the planet.
tecnologia, a gente tem pessoas, a
However, we
gente tem
have
recursos
technology, we
financeiros
have
que nos
people, we have
possibilitam
financial
fazer
resources
isso
that can
razoavelmente ao
help
mesmo
us
tempo. Claro que
do
algumas
all
escolhas
these
têm que ser
things
feitas, mas na maioria dos
simultaneously at a
casos
reasonable
a gente
manner. Of
pode
course, we have
achar
to make some
virtuosidade
choices, but in most
nessas
cases,
questões andando para e passo. Então,
we
o
can
melhor
work
caminho
on
aqui
all those
é que a
things hand
agenda
in
do
hand.
desenvolvimento socioeconômico
So
converse
the
com a
social
agenda da ação
economic
climática e a gente
agenda
encontre os
should
melhores
be
caminhos,
related to
aqueles que
the
vão fazer a
climate
maior
agenda,
diferença para
and we should
chegar
go
no
hand in
objetivo
hand, and
final.
we must find the
O
best
outro tema
ways
aqui que eu tenho
that will help
ressaltado
us
muito
make a
é a
difference
questão
and
da
reach the end
relevância.
goal.
Então,
Also, I'd
nós
like to
temos
highlight
ações que vão
relevance.
fazer uma grande diferença
There are
em
actions that are going to
segmentos
make a
que já estão muito
huge
bem
difference
mapeados e que
in
podem trazer
segments that
uma
are already
contribuição
mapped
muito
out,
grande. Nós
and they
temos
can
um
have a
outro
good
sem número de
contribution.
ações que são
There are several
interessantes,
actions as
mas
well
que
that are
eventualmente
interesting,
são complementares.
but
Então, nós
are
precisamos
supplementary,
definir com
not
mais clareza, e
key.
vamos fazer isso agora
And
no
that's why we
curtíssimo
have to
prazo,
define more
quais são
clearly.
esses
We are going to
grandes temas
define
que não
that in the
podem
short
faltar
term. We
na
need to
nossa agenda e
define
que são
the key topics
fundamentais,
that must be a part of our
entender
agenda, that are a
o que tem que
must.
acontecer no curto, médio e
We need
longo
to understand
prazo,
what needs to
entender
be
quais
done in the
são
short,
os
medium,
KPIs,
and
os
long term. We
indicadores-chave
need
aqui
to
para que a
understand
gente
what are
atinja o
the
objetivo e
KPIs that will
vamos
help us
difundir
achieve
isso
our
mais
goals.
ainda em toda a
And we will
sociedade
further
global. E
disseminate all
finalmente
that
aqui, Moça, para não me estender
across
muito,
society
eu
at
acho
a
que,
global
como
level.
sempre, tem um capítulo nacional nos temas globais.
And global
Então, embora
topics,
a
they
COP
include
seja um
a
evento
national
global, assim
chapter.
como foi o
COP is a
B20,
global event,
nós não vamos
just like
deixar de ter um
B20,
olhar muito
okay,
especial
but we
para a
need
questão do
to
Brasil.
keep a
Por
bit of
que que isso
focus
também é
on
muito
the Brazilian
importante e foi já
issue
falado no ano passado, no
in
âmbito do
Brazil.
G20 e do B20?
And why is it
O
important?
Brasil e o tema da sustentabilidade,
Brazil and the
eles
topic of
casam, eu não vou
sustainability
dizer perfeitamente, nada é perfeito, mas eles
match. I
casam
wouldn't
muito.
say
Ou seja, o
perfectly, because
desenvolvimento
nothing is
socioeconômico
perfect,
do Brasil pode
but
mudar de padrão
Brazilian
na medida em que a
social and economic
estratégia da
development can
sustentabilidade
move to
permeie
another
cada vez
level
mais
as we
o
start
nosso
implementing
caminho de
our
desenvolvimento.
sustainability strategies in
Nós
our
temos aqui
development
exemplos
efforts.
típicos, né, que a gente
There
pode
are typical
falar
examples we
da
can
questão dos
quote.
sistemas alimentares. O
For
Brasil já
example, the
é
food
uma enorme
systems.
potência
Brazil is a
e
huge power
provavelmente será
in food
o
supply,
país mais
and
relevante
it will
em
probably
termos de
become the
sistema
most
alimentar.
relevant
Nós temos a questão do
country
etanol,
for the food
nós temos as
system. There's
possibilidades em relação às
ethanol,
energias
we
renováveis e
have renewable
sustentáveis, nós temos a
energy,
matriz
sustainable
energética
energy.
provavelmente mais limpa do
We
mundo,
have probably the
nós temos o
cleanest
tema do
energy matrix
SAF, o
in the
tema do
world,
hidrogênio, o tema dos data
hydrogen,
centers que vão
data
precisar
centers.
de energia de uma forma
Data
cada
centers
vez
will
maior.
require
Então,
energy more and more.
acoplar esta visão do Brasil numa
So
visão
it is about
propositiva de
coupling the vision
sustentabilidade
for Brazil with a
casada com as visões
positive
globais, eu
sustainability
acho que ajuda
agenda
muito o
matched
mundo
with
e
the
ajuda
global
muito o
visions,
Brasil.
and all that is going to
Nós
help
podemos expandir
everybody,
as cadeias de
including
valor
Brazil.
no
We can
Brasil, a sua
expand the
atuação no
value
Brasil,
chains in Brazil
ajudando o processo de mitigação da questão do carbono
and
ao redor
help
do mundo e ajudando muito o
mitigate
Brasil a
carbon
acelerar o seu
emissions
desenvolvimento
worldwide
socioeconômico.
while helping
Então,
Brazil
de uma
accelerate its
forma muito
economical
breve
development.
e tentando ajudar aqui ao pensamento de todos, É isso que, em
So
princípio, a gente está
this what
pensando,
we are thinking
priorizar,
about initially.
tratar
So
por
this is what we
relevância
plan on
tanto os temas de
prioritizing.
mitigação como os temas
So we
de
want to prioritize
resiliência,
mitigation
como bem falou
efforts
hoje de manhã cedo o Paul numa conversa em
and
que a gente
topics
teve,
that will add
e
resilience,
casar com
like Paul
aquilo que
said in the
também será
morning,
fundamental para o desenvolvimento
and
socioeconômico
match
brasileiro.
all that with
Finalmente,
initiatives that are going to help with the
o
Brazilian economic
processo
development.
de escuta da sociedade, ele não é fácil, mas
Finally,
nós vamos fazer o que for
the process
possível
for
para
listening to
escutar
society is
todos os
not an easy
setores.
one, but
É
we'll
óbvio
do
que eu tenho
whatever
uma
we can
proximidade
to
muito
listen
grande
to
do
all
setor
industries.
empresarial, do
Of
setor
course, I am
industrial,
closer to the
por
corporate
ser a minha
world, to the
história
industry
pregressa,
world, because
mas nós
that's where
vamos
I developed
fazer o
my
máximo
career.
para ter todos
But
os
we'll do the
setores
most
juntos,
to
para ter
gather
todas as
all
entidades de
industries, to gather
diferentes
all
naturezas
entities from
juntas, de uma
several
perspectiva
business
global,
segments,
também de uma perspectiva
looking
nacional. Então, espero que a gente
at a
receba
single point,
todas as
at a global
provocações, todas as
perspective and
visões
from a
diferentes que
national
houverem,
perspective.
para que a
And we
gente
would like to
possa
hear different opinions
tentar
and different
incorporá-las ao
insights. And
máximo
we will
numa
try to
visão
incorporate
conjunta
all those
e, com
insights and
isso,
combine them into
obter
one
o
single
melhor
vision.
resultado em
And with
termos
that,
de
obtain the
caminhar com a
best
agenda
results
climática, que, de novo,
for the
é o
climate
capítulo
agenda.
dessa função que eu ocupo nesse momento. Então,
Again, this is my
muito
focus, the
obrigado,
climate
Moça. Não sei
agenda.
se atendi aqui as tuas
All right, thanks,
expectativas
Moose. I don't
e
know
estou à
if
tua
I've met your
disposição.
expectations, but I am at your disposal for anything. Thank you, Dan. If you've seen Dan managing B20 in Brazil, well, that's why it's good to have Dan as a high-level champion there. He brought some pragmatism. I took part in the B20 in Indonesia and China, and I was part of a B20. We left with 60 recommendations, but they didn't really mean anything. Then Dan said, let's be pragmatic. What's more important? So then brought in some management feature that helped us prioritize, focus on the most relevant recommendations. And the beauty of having Dan as a high-level champion is that it's not simple. There are 475 actions there. But the beauty of having someone like Dan is like Dan is going to bring pragmatism, ability to prioritize things with reason. So we couldn't pick the best person. Dan is there. So the projects will be harmonious and we'll be able to take things ahead. Thanks, Dan, for having us. You know, you have a busy agenda. We wish you good luck in your high-level champion position. I know that's not going to be a simple task because you have other commitments and other responsibilities, but everybody is excited with you being a part of this
Muito obrigado
agenda.
e parabéns a você e toda a equipe que
I
está trabalhando na
appreciate you and
SBCOP, e nós vamos estar
congratulations to
muito
you and the
próximos.
team
Eu acho que a
that
SBCOP
is working
é
on
uma
the
enorme
SP
oportunidade
COP.
também de a gente ter um
And I think SP
showcase
COP is a huge
das questões
opportunity. It
relevantes
brings
para o
us a
mundo e, de
showcase
novo,
for
das questões muito
matters that
relevantes para o Brasil, e tomara que esse
are
exercício que
relevant for the
vocês estão
world and for
inaugurando se
Brazil.
torne
And
perene
hopefully the
aí, ou pelo
exercise we're
menos ao longo de
inaugurating
vários
will
anos, em outras
continue
edições
for
também,
many
para que a gente
years
tenha essa
and we'll see
boa
other editions
expressão
happening
da virtuosidade daquilo que pode ser feito por nós. Muito obrigado.
and we will make things happen. Thank you. Now I'd like to bring Paul up on stage. Come on up, Paul. We'll hear Paul's view on COP, on SB COP, on the outlook for SB COP and COP, and then we will open the floor for questions from our audience. Paul has an interesting view on how to conduct all that, so let's bring Paul up on stage. Hello, Paul. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation and for the warmest welcome. I am happy to be back to Brazil, a country filled with beauty, energy.
Where if we don't do it right, all the future emissions are. So what you're doing here is important because Brazil, and the more I come here, the more I discover how much you're actually doing and how much potential there is and how many people are aligned on this agenda. And it's very important to get others along that you show that it works. We can talk theory, we can sign statements, we can make big declarations, but ultimately what counts is what we do. And a lot of things are happening in Brazil, and I think Brazil is very well placed as a result of that to not only talk the talk, but actually walk the talk. And if you walk the talk and show that it actually results in making your country economically stronger, making it more inclusive, having your industries become more relevant, not only in Brazil, but also at a global level, then others will follow. No better way to get people to do something than to create success around it. I saw in Unilever, when we were running Unilever for 10 years, we put a very strong sustainable agenda out there. We found that our brands that were more purpose-driven, that were more sustainable at the core, were brands that were growing faster. Over the 10 years, we had 300% shareholder return. I'm not sure how many companies changed because of our sustainability, but when they saw the returns, when they saw the business growing faster than competitors, when they saw the shareholders being rewarded, it got the attention of a lot of other people that tried to figure out what are they doing. I want to do the same because it clearly must be working. So success breeds success. And you're actually very well placed. As I've seen many times over the last 20, 30, 40 years, that businesses that are run more responsibly, that have a strong purpose, that put sustainability at the core, embrace partnerships, are longer term focused in what they do, take all the stakeholders into account, including planet Earth and future generations. These businesses always have shown a higher chance of being successful than the ones that were focused very short-term myopically on the next quarter or on the shareholders. It sounds so simple, but it's hard to do, especially when we live in a world where everybody is pulled back to the here and now. As companies that are converting to a more sustainable business model are more likely to be successful, it should not be a surprise either that if you aggregate the number of companies and you add it up to the country level, then you would see the same thing at a country level. And indeed, when Patricia and Aya did the ecological transition plan, it wasn't surprising to me to find that it was about an investment of, let's say, $150 billion a year in Brazil, which we should be able to do for a country this size. We could unlock economic potential of $450 billion. An opportunity to grow your economies within the same year that you make these investments. Creating quality jobs, more resilient jobs, more inclusive jobs. Because ultimately it's a plan about people. So we're sitting here on something very powerful. Now we should not be naive on the challenges. We are, despite all the things we're doing in the world, and a lot of things are happening, we're still projecting to about 2.9 degrees. At 2.9 degrees, the world looks very fundamentally different than the 1.5 degrees we have now. This is an exponential problem. Unfortunately, we as humans tend to get stuck in linear thinking. But the difference between 1.5 and 2.8 or 2.9 degrees Celsius is about 2 million more people in food insecurity. It's about 2 billion people in food insecurity more. It's about 1 billion more people swirling around the world trying to find a place to live. It's 40% of the world population living in temperatures that you frankly can't live in. We now already have 20% of the world population being exposed for 3 months, or for about 3 months to temperatures above 40 degrees. Have you ever lived there? And usually the poorer people are the ones that don't have the air conditioners or the houses or the resilience or the adaptation. They're paying a high price for it. We're currently paying a high price for it. So we have a tipping point, actually, that we have passed the 1.5 degrees. Ought to be a major wake-up point for all of us. The second thing that is at a tipping point, I believe, is that we have made so much progress in the conversion to this green economy. Last year, we spent about $2.1 trillion on the green economy, in green energy investments, more than twice what we do on fossil fuel. Even a country like the US, which doesn't get the best press these days, may I say, for many different reasons, all the energy expansion that they did, 90% of that was in green energy. Now, why is that the case? Because it makes sense. It makes economic sense. Forget what you believe. Forget what church you come from or what household you grew up in. When the economics go, the thing moves. Even now, the US might have different opinions, with some of the vested order pushing back and wanting to stay in the old world because it fits them well. We are still seeing that the economic forces move you in the right direction. It's very hard to deny that. So that we are at a tipping point. We are at a tipping point. We're just not moving fast enough. We've waited so long for the problem to come in. We have underestimated the fact that the problem is exponential, not linear. So our actions are linear, whilst they should be exponential. There are two big mistakes that we make. We look for actions in the future, including the private sector. They look in the back mirror because they look at past experience. What have we learned from the past? What are some best practices that others did? But the future is quite different than the past when you have an exponential problem like climate change. And likewise, technology is going exponentially down as well, all the time. When Al Gore made his movie, The Inconvenient Truth, you still remember that. When he made that movie, people said he's exaggerating because he's talking about the costs and what we need to do to avoid climate change. And he's lying because the facts are not right. Well, he was indeed wrong, because all the things he said have proven to be even more true than what he said, not less true. The cost of technology was coming down even faster than what he was saying in the movies, not less. The International Energy Agency, located in Paris, they're not dumb people. They're very smart in terms of trying to predict what the future energy needs will be and what the mix of that energy will be moving forward. Birol and his people, I have great admiration for them. But every year, in the last 10, 15 years, they've made their reports. They underestimated the speed of costs coming down on green technology. The tipping points on solar, the tipping points on wind, the tipping points on battery capacity. And likewise, they overestimated the time we had to do something about it. So we are at a tipping point in technology as much as we are in a tipping point in Earth systems. 6 out of the 9 Earth systems that define the health of this planet are already outside of their limits. So if you are in a country like Brazil that happens to be very well positioned economically for this transition. You have your natural capital, you have your transition minerals, you have your bioeconomy, you have your green economy already very well developed compared to any other country in the world, bar a few exceptions. You can actually be in the driver's seats. I think the other country that of this magnitude that would be the same as Brazil is Indonesia. So it's not surprising that if you look at the Tropical Forest Forever Fund, that is a first initiative on the South with the South. When you put Indonesia, Brazil, and the Congo together, if we ever are able to do this in an intelligent way, that would have a major impact on how we finally start to appreciate natural capital, for example, which has been off the equation in many parts of the discussions in the past. And only Brazil can do that, by the way. Nobody else can. So you're in a driver's seat. You have the keys to unlock your global economy, the Brazilian economy. You have many examples where it shows it works, so that we can get the credibility. And now you have the initiatives to back it up. With the ecological transition plan, the studies on the tipping points, the work you're now doing on the Sustainable Business COP, where you realize that 80–85% of the things that need to happen have to come from the private sector. So you might as well rally them behind few things, big things, where you can create tipping points in our food systems, in our energy systems, in our social care systems for the people in our value chains. Brazil, by the way, I think, again, once more, reminded us globally that this is about people. Lula's plan on the Global Alliance on People and Poverty has created quite a rallying point around not only the G20, but many of the countries that are going to be represented at the COP, to remind people that ultimately this is all about lifting people out of poverty, making this an inclusive world, inclusive including for future generations. Frankly, if we can draw one lesson from the climate negotiations until now, from the discussions that we've all had, is that we kept it in science, that we kept it on fear discussions, that we kept it under the impression that we have to invest a lot and are at a disadvantage economically if we do so. We never talked about people. You'd hardly hear that. For the first time now, we're sitting at the heart of it. Why? Because we've discovered that biodiversity is such a big part of it, that food systems are such a big part of it. In countries like Brazil, you've immediately championed the rights of indigenous peoples in these processes. We've put people central. So we are at the point that we can get the hearts and the minds of people, not just the esoteric discussions we've had in the past. So this is a COP that is a tipping point, in my opinion, a tipping point for all of us. And what you're doing here, that's why I'm so enthusiastic about it, what you're doing here is making it come alive in a very practical way, with a critical mass already of the private sector. Now, you have a job to do, because to have credibility, we need to be inclusive. So embrace everybody in this process. You need to ensure that you reach out to the South, other countries that have been previously or that still feel excluded from the COP process. Brazil can make that more inclusive. You have to also be sure that all the companies in Brazil are part of it. You have about 30% of the companies that have made serious climate commitments, that understand the importance in their business models. Currently in the world in total, less than 5% of companies take biodiversity in their business models. Doesn't make any sense, because we 100% depend on biodiversity. I would argue in every business model. The water we use, the air we breathe, the materials we have, the ideas, most of them come from nature. In fact, we are an integral part of nature. If we don't understand that, we will never solve it. Hubert Reeves was a philosopher from Canada. He said it very well. He said, man is the most amazing species. He worships an invisible God and destroys a visible nature, not realizing that the visible nature he destroys is the invisible God he worships in the first place. So if we can use Brazil to make that connection and have us be honest, have us be worthy carrying the human title, which comes from both humility and humus, which is the soil, the ground, and realizing that we are an integral part of something that we're actually trying to destroy, we will never solve it. Brazil is the country that can unlock that. And where does it need to be unlocked? Not with money, we have enough money. Not with technology, we have enough technology. It needs to be unlocked in these 10 centimeters between these two little things hanging here. It's a mindset issue, it's a leadership issue. What we have lacking, what is lacking right now in the world, is leadership. The issues that we're facing are issues of greed, of apathy, of selfishness, to be honest. So do we get these leaders to step up and be courageous? Right now we see them shrinking in light of the attacks of some vested interest or some politicians who want to be populist. We see leadership shrinking currently, and we are in deficit. So can we use Brazil as well to give people the courage to speak up, the courage to set targets in line with science, the courage to work together in partnerships to solve these bigger issues, the courage to help governments get out of this little deadlock that they're currently in. And courage, ladies and gentlemen, is a hard word. It comes from the Greek word kor, K-O-R, which says, speak from the mouth what comes from the heart. We have to bring humanity back to all we do. We have to put people central and have the courage now to start implementing this. Wangari Maathai, who was a Nobel Prize winner from Kenya, wonderful lady, said it very well when she said, there comes a time in the history of humanity that we are called upon to rise to a higher level of what she called consciousness, a higher moral ground. I cannot think of a better time to do that now, individually and collectively, than now. And this COP will be a key proof point. In fact, perhaps the final proof point we have, if we're up for this as humanity and attack these challenges and allow me to keep looking at my grandchildren and theirs, or if we fail. So it's our choice. And I think the responsibility we have is, in fact, towards my granddaughters and many others. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Paul. I know how we are on time because we need to go to the next agenda, right?
Pedir para tirar uma foto de vocês três e a gente segue para a próxima agenda.
Now, kindly, we'd like to take a picture of you three, and thank you very much for participation.
Obrigada. Mussa, eu vou pedir para você já ficar no palco.
Já fico aqui, né?
Eu acho que você já vai ser nosso moderador do próximo momento.
Tá bom.
Agradecer primeiro os três
And you'll be the next moderator. I'd like to thank the three speakers of this previous moment. We showed the strength of the private sector, and within the solution for the COP30, we're going to bring this to the table. And now we're going to go to a central part of the COP. We're going to begin the tax in force. We got groups to talk about this topic, and Musa will coordinate this debate that we will have. The idea of this task force is to bring concrete cases so that we can analyze, see the main topic, and then do the recommendation. I invite to the stage the 6 leaders that will represent this topic, 6 topics. Now, Paula Kowalski, welcome Ronia Oziovic from Transição Energética, Patrícia Gesser, Economia Circular e Materiais, Circular Economy and Materials, welcome. Rafael Segreira, to talk about green skills, you're welcome, you're a great partner of ours. And Gilberto Tomazoni, for food systems, welcome. And lastly, but not less important, we have the part of bioeconomy with Angela Pignacci. Welcome, Angela. With this amazing team, we're going to talk about the topics, and Moza will then lead this discussion, this topic. For coming, everybody that here is on stage is a pro bono work. We usually get the busiest person that's really working. These are the people that do the most. And thank you very much for being here with us. Now, I'd like to start with a transversal question, and then we will pass the floor. How did you see this invitation? What is your expectation with respect to each of the group? I know there are more people with more or less experience. Tomazoni, he knows a lot how things worked. We have people that are new in this respect. Now, what is your expectation and what you see as a success metrics for the work? We will begin now with Paula, which is to the left, and also starting with you. Good morning to everyone. It's a huge honor and pleasure to be here. I came here with Musa in this journey to put Brazil at another contact, another level of international relevance. COP in Indonesia, we started a work putting the word biofuels in the negotiation, but it didn't exist. In India, we gained an allied. So it's very nice, very interesting to see how this has grown. We were together in the B20 work, and I'm very pleased to see a lot of things that we complained about, and we then saw dance management to have less recommendations but more actionable recommendations for something that was still uh, just recommendation. It's very special to be here, to have the opportunity here in Brazil, in fact, to change this all into action. So it is an amazing opportunity, and I'm very pleased to be deputy, Musa's deputy. And today I represent Luciana Ribeiro, which is Albert Capital, who is a finance chair. We actually laughed when we talked about it. When she sent me the topic, I said, well, I'm not going to send you a message because we're going to build this together in on the stage. I think it's everybody's agenda indeed. And we are, in fact, very pleased when we have a special opportunity in our hands. We cannot waste it. Good morning. I am Honia. I today represent Daniela Umaniki, who is the chair of the Energy Transition. I'm her deputy. And talking to Daniela, the invitation was very, very well received by Hodia. So, because we have a sustainability and decarbonization program since 2007, 2008, much before talking about ESG. And we started doing decarbonization in-house. We've reduced 95% of our scope 1 and 2, but the remaining 5% and the carbon footprint of our products, well, we can't do it alone. So we need indeed to leave our house, go out to seek partnership with other sectors, governments, several actors that are responsible for this planet, for our planet. So it is an amazing opportunity. There has been good work done that Musa, he conducted the energy transition GT, and our contribution is to bring something really concrete so that we can give the next step, something actionable. What should I do? Where do I start to, in fact, begin this energy transition journey? Many companies have already initiated this. Is good news. We know the interest of the companies in participating in this GG, and this is a clear view of their participation and interest. So the contribution of this work, this that will be with many company sector is quite multidisciplinary to bring this light to the starting point so we can speed up this whole process. This is what we need. Rafa, now that I know you a bit. You are from Schneider Electric. Would you like to tell us what are the green skills? It's a new topic when you talk about energy transition so that people can understand. Tell us a little bit of what are green skills and so on, because here we showed the need of electricians in the world and what happens to technology and this evolution. And we need people. So there are two groups that are quite transverse, the climate funding and the Hafa's group. So if you could explain this to us, because this is a more not so clear topic, so to say. Well, thank you very much, Ricardo. When Ricardo and Patricia extended the invitation, difficult not to accept it, not only because of the level of leadership. I had the opportunity to see the team working that Musa led during B20, the impact of this recommendation as well. I hope it's time to implement everything. And also, I look back COP21, Paris, what we talked about or what we said we would do. Now, 10 after that, many things were done, but there's still a lot to do. We need speed. There's a lack of speed in this. And looking to the future, this team and Brazil, I could only but accept this invitation because it didn't make sense just doing things alone. And so we cannot manage to have a bigger impact because the topic they proposed was green skills. Green skills has got to do with people. And everything that we do, indeed, is done by people to people. So if we want to develop and we want to make Brazil lead the project in 2030, just 5 years from now. I don't want to go beyond all the opportunities that we already know of the energy matrix and everything you know about Brazil. We will not make these opportunities come in operation, work in operation. So we need quality and quantity people. When you talk about green skills, Paul said there we don't have a technology issue. We already have it. But look, there's something we lack, but we have a lot of things. So we indeed have the skills and to do this. Green skills has got to do with how we will leverage this technology that are available to empower people that are in the productive sector and to leverage this. So many companies have experience. We also do have experience in the world and in Brazil. And how can we create something together that can have a higher impact to reach a scalability or to scale all of this and make use of everything we have, not only for Brazil, but worldwide. We're going to bring the practice of other companies and also worldwide so that we can put it into action. So green skills is the capabilities so that we can use and leverage technology to have a positive impact on business and the environment.
Patricia now, representing Ambipar. I met Tercio in this hotel. He is an enthusiast of this topic. He works for a brilliant company, huge growth. So he'll talk about circular economy. You are setting up a great team. You said you have 10 guest companies, right, already? From different nations. Could you please elaborate on this work? Good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here with you, to see so many familiar faces back in my days as a Secretary of the Environment and as the chair of the Environmental Company of São Paulo. I'm here on behalf of Ambipar, Tércio Bulengue. which makes me proud of as well. We're talking about a company that provides environmental solutions. That is great. Connects with the circular economy agenda. And in our view, this work must connect a few dots: the public sector, the private sector, and the academia. This partnership with Ambipar starts with something that we are doing today at the University of São Paulo. We have a center focused on sustainability. It is a research center. I am the coordinator of that center, and this work is done together with Ambipar. The circular economy is a major solution, no doubt. And as having a legal background, and as I look at my constitution that provides for an environmentally balanced environment, well, human beings are center for the fulfillment of this agenda. So the circular economy must have human beings at the center. And I believe that all of you gathered here today are striving to achieve that. That's what all companies are looking for, right? And I do believe that we can play a leading role as the climate conference happens in Brazil. Like Davi and Paul and yourself said, we have important elements in Brazil from the energy standpoint, from the point of view of solutions that Brazil can offer, and also from the circular economy standpoint. And I'm going to elaborate on that afterwards. Now I'll pass the floor to Gilberto. I am a fan of Gilberto. I worked with him in B20, and it's amazing to see his energy, regardless of the position he's in. He is the CEO of one of the biggest Brazilian companies, a global company. But he did amazing work at B20, so it was one of the easiest choice for us. Gilberto is always here. I don't know how he finds the time to take part in anything, and he's been doing outstanding work. His team is seasoned. They know things inside out. They are delivering already. And later on, when Gilberto starts talking about his speech, we will see that there is a connection between the food system and environment. And then we will correlate that with green skills and with the project he is implementing in Pará. Gilberto has lots of news for you. Maybe you won't have enough time. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Taking part in the SP COP is a mission. We worked at B20, and I see that as a continuity of the work we did at B20. At B20, we brought up ideas, while here we want to bring up examples and solutions that can be scaled up and how to scale up those solutions. And I don't mean solutions that are already in place, but others as well. And I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that we cannot address climate and food system and food security separately. And if we are serious about 1.5 degrees, then we had to put agriculture at the center of this discussion. Because food security, more people, that means increasing productivity. We have to transform the food systems. So that would be key if we want to have peace at the world, in world. Because there will be no peace if people are hungry. So this is my vision. We must be able to influence the decision making and make decision makers consider agriculture and put agriculture at the core of this transformation process. It's not just about regenerating. We have to look after the social aspects as well. And we look at what's happening out there, less than 4% of investments in climate change are allocated in agriculture today. And if you look at the food systems, less than 1.7% is allocated to food systems. So simply put, we have to wake up. It's a wake-up call. We have to invest in food systems in order for this transition to take place properly. Agriculture accounts for how much of the emissions worldwide? Calculations vary based on metrics, but 25 to 30%, and only gets 4% of the resource of the funding. Well, although agriculture accounts for 30% of emissions, it can help capture carbon at a much larger scale. And we have examples of that. Agriculture can be a carbon positive industry, not a carbon negative industry. There are examples about it. Now, passing the floor to Angela. We met a few years ago at Unilever. Unilever, once again, connecting many people. And Natura's name popped up naturally because of the work you do in Brazil for many years now. You are a reference in that front. And I must confess, bioeconomy was not a familiar topic for me. I didn't know too much about bioeconomy, and we were wondering which countries we would invite to be part of this group. Angela, please talk about the work. What are the challenges you envision? Thanks. A pleasure to be here today. I am speaking on behalf of Natura CEO, João Paulo Ferreira, and we are immensely proud to be leading the bioeconomy front. Bioeconomy is at the Natura's DNA. It is the main example of transforming social and environmental challenges into business opportunities. And that's how we create a virtual cycle that is sustaining and can grow. Natura started this agenda 25 years ago in the Amazon region. And today we are working with more than 25 communities in the Amazon forest, including in Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. More than 11,000 families covered, many assets, and with a resilient chain compassing several assets of the bioeconomy, cocoa, angioroba, and many other items that we use in our cosmetic lines. And we cannot talk about climate without talking about nature-based solutions and without encompassing people in those areas. Natura is doing this work for more than 25 years, and we were able to realize that we can protect more than 22 million hectares of standing forest because we provide income for the families and we can bring in good biodiversity practices. And with those practices, we can keep the forest standing, resilient. And also about the feedstock, the consumables, we started buying seedling back in the days, and now the communities, they have 19 oil extraction plants that are increasing their income. And that's really important as well. Now, from the working group standpoint, I must say this is a natural topic for us. I am the chair of the União Florestica Biotrade. This is an NGO focused on biodiversity worldwide. It is based in Amsterdam. And we are using the WebBT database to bring in other companies, not just from Brazil, but also multinational. So we are inviting those companies to be a part of this working group. We are extremely excited about it. And I believe that at COP30, Brazilian companies have the responsibility to show that we do have good solutions in Brazil, and we need to scale them up. Now, so that we will foster the social and environmental development in the country through an energy matrix that is green and through all the resources we have in this country. Yeah, many discussions ahead. Great conversation. I have a question for you. Energy transition is perhaps one of the central topics in the climate discussion, right? I was the chair of the last working group, and I, for one, I had trouble selecting companies. Everybody wants to take part in it. But my question is, at which stage you are in this group in selecting the co-chairs? If you don't know, the task forces here and their respective CEOs, they must select members and co-chairs. And we have defined a limit of co-chairs for each task force because of my experience in the past. My first meeting had 915 people online, and it didn't work. There are a lot of people just, talking, and at the end of the day, we had to top down. We had to reduce the working group. At which stage you are in the selection process, it is hard to decide who to bring in, right? Who do you bring to each task force to be representative enough. I am giving freedom to the chairs, João Paulo, Dan, Monique, and allowing them to select those that they think will be relevant, those that they think will be representative. One important thing about selection is engagement, is how engaged that company is with energy transition. We want companies to be really committed, to be eager to influence other companies. How are we going to influence other companies if we don't believe in that? So this is the first thing about the selection process. The second aspect is representativeness. We're talking about COP in Brazil, but we have to think worldwide. We have to think about the climate issue globally. So we are looking for multinational companies that represent major regions, Europe, Asia, North America, Latin America, Africa. So we'll try to find representatives that are international, that can bring their inputs. One of the challenges is we need to have an agenda of recommendations that can apply globally, but that also respect the peculiarities and specificities of each country, of each region. So it is a major challenge indeed. And of course, we need to bring in Brazilian companies, get them to come and show their work, their engagement, and the examples, and also to show that this is possible. The companies we are picking already have important cases to show. They can show that it's doable. It is possible for the private sector to combine competitiveness with sustainability and decarbonization. I think this is the path we're taking, but we know it's not an easy task. Yeah, you cannot imagine the pressure. There's so many people wanting to take part in it, and it's not easy to select them at all. Patricia, you had an explanation on the work you're doing. What can we expect from the circular economy as a task force? What are the main focuses? You could please give us like a spoiler alert. What countries did you invite? Can you disclose? So we'll know what to expect from the circular economy task force. We started with the idea of representativeness as well. We thought of companies from the Middle East, from Asia, China, United States, Europe. We also thought of Brazilian companies. The topic of circular economy surpasses many other groups, including groups that are here working with different topics, but do have an interface with circularity. Our task was to find the main topics we would work in terms of circular economy. So we decided for 4 main topics. So these are the 4 main topics. And they are very dear to this agenda, very important. 1, reducing waste and reusing materials. So if you work with the circular economy already, and if you work with reverse logistics, you know how hard it is for us to advance in those topics. Packaging as well. Packaging design is important, not just about packaging disposal or recycling. Our idea is to reduce impacts. So the question is how to get the private sector reducing impacts. That will be important. And this is tied in with the idea of new technologies. Because new technologies will end up driving design, packaging, and product design as well. The second focus is on regenerative productive models. This is covered by other working groups, but for us, this is also important. We need to start thinking about a strategic transition for production and generation of waste arising from production. So we cannot minimize this issue and to recycling only. This is a narrow view of the circular economy. So it's not just down to recycling. Lucky Ferri works on eco-modernism. In eco-modernism, there's a connection between technologies that are favorable to circularity combined with human beings at the core of this process. When it comes to circularity, we handle pickers, cooperatives, and social insertion. This is really important. This is really important for circular economy. Now, let's talk about packaging and reverse logistics regulations. We've seen major progress in reverse logistics in the past few years, and it all started with creative solutions. In 2015, we disclosed Resolution 45, tying licensing with reverse logistics. That regulation is enforced up to this date. It has been a model for other states. So when it comes to thinking about circular economy, we have to think outside the box. And that leads the private sector to connect with the public sector. And finally, the role of local governments and consumers. Let's not forget that consumers are a key player here. In Brazil, we talk about shared responsibility. And the question is how to bring in consumers to this agenda, how to make consumers embrace this agenda. And we look at the COP, the climate agenda, people need to understand they're part of it. And this is our task, to raise awareness, to influence those that are going to make decisions. So that would be it in a nutshell. The circular economy showcase, we'll probably have examples from all over the world, things that we don't know about, things that we don't know are happening in Asia. I think it's going to be hard for you to pick the best cases, but it'd be interesting to learn about all those cases. So bring examples that are scalable. And if you have the private sector on board with you, I'm sure that you are going to get good examples. I think we are going to be impressed with the number of examples from projects in the circular economy. If I may comment something, we have something quite innovative that has connected the University of São Paulo with Ambipar. We have a biodigester model that has been licensed to operate and that can be shared to all organic products. If you look at the fact that 50% of the waste in Brazil is organic, this is interesting. And in Brazil, there are good examples along those lines. Let me emphasize the sugarcane industry. There's so much development in the sugarcane business. It's fantastic. In 2007, 1.6 million hectares were available for burning, for firing. It's authorized. And now only 0.01% of the original area available for the fire before the fire was now authorized. And that was an output of a joint effort. The question is how to build things together with the private sector, things that are doable, possible, and that are going to make the necessary progress.
Is the topic of this copy. It is where we have the greatest bottleneck in terms of development. Everybody's looking at it because it's not going to be easy, because during the crisis and trade war and war in Europe, Russia and Ukraine, I see that the funding for a project actually reducing. So you have an ongoing project, and I'd like you to talk about the challenges and what project you imagine to launch. You want to launch, which is a global project, and you can talk to us. Well, without the shadow of a doubt, we are in the most challenging moment. Capital costs are high. United States changed its positioning. But I believe that we believe strongly that there is good money for good projects and that we need to work on to points. First one, to structure the project governance of these projects so that they become robust and fundable. And on the other hand, understand how do we the unblock the financial flow of private capital, of private companies. This is the great challenge, and the central word is got to do with risk. And risk is the less we understand, the more we're afraid, and the higher we price it. So if we can advance in the qualification of risk, we can improve the capital flow. Just with respect to the figures today, the called Global South Latin America inside this group needs or has competitive conditions and efficiency wise to receive a certain product, be it energy transition, biodiversity, sustainable agriculture. We have means, climate means, we have sun, we have water, we have and many interesting things. But Latin America receive 4% of global investment in energy transition and decarbonation movements. We have to find a way so that this funding flow better. We divide it in three blocks, mobilization of private capital, because when we talk about climate funding, we think about on the side of the debt, but we should also think in terms of equity. The funding of project happens as a rule with one equity funding, be it 20, 30%, we're going to discover as we go. But this capital, this investment is at the end of the day allows us to multiply the flow of the funds considering the debt, because 80 comes from debt, but we must improve or balance this combination. We have an important role of GFI MTBs. How can we make them quantify the correct risk so that we can have adequate taxes so that these projects advance? As a rule, people look back to look forward. We consider past statistics to forecast the future. But this might be one of the ways we analyze, which is completely disrupted currently, because unfortunately, what we put in the disclaimer not necessarily explain the future. So we need indeed to understand how do we tangibilize for the funding organisms or institutions this risk quantification, and so that they can help us to bring in capital. So within this risk aspect, there is another topic that is within this tag thought is a carbon credit one. So if we think in a simple way, carbon credit, if it were considered a currency, it could be the bygoer or just the way that funding would occur. Those countries that have more efficiency for carbon credits, and coming from other countries that has less efficiency. We had this discussion when the IRA, for example, came out. It it moved certain project to the United States because of fiscal benefits or grants rather than efficiency of these projects. So the topic of carbon credit is indeed very important. And I always joke and say that the lenders, the bankers, the funding people are Cartesian. So, and they like to look at the screen and run Monte Carlo to see which is the risk distribution at a specific future curve. When we have a future carbon curve, this problem will be solved because they can quantify the risk and the money can flow. So not because only of the carbon credit itself, but to sort of keep a standing forest and so that there is no deforestation. This point of carbon credit can quantify risk much more and help in financial risk happening. So the discussion with respect to the real economy, which is a huge opportunity, so that we can show things that work and less time trying to sort of reinvent the wheel and scaling what is already available. So scalability might be indeed a challenge. But within the idea that bring concrete things, this is a project that Lou began. It is an idea of a coalition of bringing funding resources to Latin America, securitization, for example, the creation of hedge, uh, for example, for underdeveloped countries with respect to transition by economy, funding of such. We have the challenge of the exchange rate of the currency. How can we create mechanism to reduce this risk for the foreign investors mainly, so that we can assure flow of capital for these very important projects? Thank you very much. And I believe that in November we might be able to launch this fund. Now I pass the floor to Mazoni. We have 8 more minutes to finish. Mazoni and then Segreira. So in Mazoni, what do you see differently? Do you think it's more challenging for people to have this commitment of B20 because it's 20 countries. Now we are considered 196 countries. According to your group work, do you find it challenging to bring the CEOs to this conversation, to the table? Or are people willing to participate, or is it even more difficult than the B20? Because what you see, for example, Trump and United States, they're not so supportive with respect to the climate challenges. In fact, I notice there is a difficulty. People want to contribute to this challenge because they are considering the time they have to dedicate themselves to this. We have short period to dedicate to this, so we got to have a team behind to help and to work with the proposals that we want to bring that are indeed concrete. So I invited people from worldwide, because when we talk about agriculture, we start with the seed until fertilizers and the productive process, commercialization. So it's a huge chain where we have to have a systemic point of view, but not only in Brazil. Obviously, we're going to use Brazil to show examples, because there are amazing projects here that can indeed be utilized. They are actually scalable here and can be scaled abroad. We got to take people to look at these projects, because to talk about it is a process that isn't actually convincing. So our system, to be more sustainable, I say that to produce more, to have more productivity, and with lower emissions, and earn more, we earn more money with this. So we should adopt this thing as fast as possible and make this process work. How can we show that we have these projects? Just to give an idea of the diversity we face, I invited Bayer, Rodrigo Santos from Bayer, excellent choice, Olívio Tedesco from Crop Life, and Ramon Lagarta da PepsiCo, Greg Heckman from Bloomberg, and also Pele Supinido, the rural producer, a large producer that uses technology, advanced technology, in terms of regenerative economy at large scales. And I brought people from the whole world to see what he is indeed doing. So Jay Shorovsky from UPL, that works with fertilizers, he's from India. And I invited the Minister of Agriculture from Nigeria, that is a very populous country that has enormous challenges there, and I invited people from China, from COFCO, still are still saying that, well, can't I change, or somebody, isn't there anybody to replace me? Because if you do not bring this kind of leadership, we end up not influencing or not have such a huge influence. So the delegations must be or must have had a contact with our proposals. This is the strategy we have been adopting. But I see everybody wanting to collaborate, participate, institution, universities. I can only but thank everybody that they believe that agriculture can be the um, the driver, so that we can also tackle the hunger, the issues of small producer, and we have to be resilient. So we have a virtuous cycle. The more sustainable we are, the more productive we are. The more productive we are, the product will be more accessible. So it's no use wanting to charge a premium over sustainable product. The consumer will not pay this price. So we must make sustainable products cheaper, and for such it must be more productive. So generative economy and the focus on the small producer, putting the small producer in the center and thinking how are we going to remunerate those who produce while these individuals regenerate the planet. So the challenge is having metrics to understand this exactly what it is. In Brazil, for example, here we have data that are not topical, so to say, because we have to create, and we are indeed discussing about launching or creating an institute that will measure tropical agriculture, what are the emissions of such, and this is one of the projects we're trying to implement. So we have temperate agriculture, tropical agriculture is this. So the biome is this and that. So it's going to be something that quite fun, so to say. I know you have an interesting project in the state of Pará that involve what you were saying. How can we educate or educate the small producer with respect to cocoa production and to be more productive with livestock, and it involves indeed the part of what Rafa said, how can you educate these individuals? So there is a transversal work. That's why we put the green skills team, because they're involved in all of this. So I hope really that you can launch until November this project. It's got to do with copy that will happen in the state or in the state of Pará, the city of Belém, that will indeed remunerate or increase the income, the local income, but the financial cycle of this producer and distributes the productive cycle equally. It's something very simple to implement. It's not complex at all. So it's got to do with what we talked about, which was bioeconomy, biodiversity. So you can produce things in a consortium manner so that you can capture what we need. It's got to do with the funding of the small producer. In fact, we have a lateral laterality. And so now we have 2 more minutes. Could you kindly explain why is your work transversal, and you're going to have the ability to connect with Gilberto and energy transition? Well, I'll try to wrap up. I am essentially optimistic because I think the funding issue we will eventually manage. You know, we don't lack money in this respect, but we want to bring real sectorial cases. If we're going to talk about any sector, the great blockage or hurdle our people, because they need to have the competencies and the capabilities and the mindset. I'm just going to put forth two figures. We're very proud, and Brazil should be proud of their energy matrix. But when we use this energy, we are in deficit, and technologies are already available because we don't know how to apply or use it. In case of Davi or from CNI, industrial competitiveness in Brazil, it is worse compared to the countries we studied because of competences. I'm not going to talk about other aspects, but we need people to be educated. So transversely, sectorially wise, we have many examples. So the choice of the co-chairs using the same criteria that you have mentioned, they have a lot of examples to bring forth. So, Angela, just to conclude, could you just, we'd like to have your final remarks. Uh, what have you been doing and how is this process? We're very excited because we were the last group that started here. We already structured in 4 pillars. The first one is a structure biodiversity chain, how we escalate, how do we identify new assets, and structuring of the benefits when we have the Nagoya Protocol inserted, and above all, how do we want to leverage social economic resources for these families. One thing is connected to the other and reminds me of the story that when we put the mini plant inside the community, we had to call for skills of the electricians, the mechanic, that the community doesn't have there. So we are working in this respect. And the second thing that I think is very important, how can we share technology? Because when we talk about biodiversity, different from traditional agriculture, we have Embrapa that foments development, improvement of the seeds, and so on. For the bioeconomy to develop an equipment, it's still a very sort of base career. How do we bring research and development to speed this up? And with respect to innovation and technology, we had a huge opportunity, which is replacing, as for example, we got to replace the items. So working with certifications, bring credibility, and also work done with biodiversity, with fair trade, etc. And obviously, funding is a topic because of a huge potential to escalate. Brazil has solutions. We just have to unblock and scale. Thank you very much once again for your time and not for being here, for your dedication in these projects. I always say that I have 2 daughters at home, and I say it's a huge pride for me to get home and talk about what we do, especially in this difficult times we're living, right? So the private sector here, and as we see, Paul and Musa said to me, "You're creating something huge. SB Corp is not only from Brazil, it's an innovation that started in Brazil, but is attracting interest from many, many people around the world. And may it be a pathway to earn more, get more strength." So today we have the goal of calling or inviting 150 CEO, for example, people that are engaged to make this thing become more robust and strong. I'm very excited about this. We have the support of consulting companies. So we have everything for things to work out. I come from the private sector, so we see the convergence here, a good lever from COP, a good champion, which is them, the dream team here, consulting, amazing consulting companies, and people really with the will of working. Thank you very much, and let's go. Good luck for all of us here. Thank you.
Let's take an official photograph, if you will. Let's bring the team. Davi, is Davi here? Please come up on stage. Let's take an official photograph. We are going to replicate that photo in Belém afterwards. Oh, Patricia, this is an emblematic work that represents the beginning of our works. And we can take another photograph in Belém afterwards. Thank you so much, everybody. So I'm going to break protocol. I'd like to bring Paula on stage so we can take a photograph with the initiative co-chair. I'd like to ask Patricia to be up on stage so we can take a photo of the women leaders in the COP initiative. Come on, girls. Rosa, come. Join us. David, please join us as well. We have some female leaders. I'd like to commend Paula and Patricia as leaders of those fronts, of their fronts. By the way, as we wait for the photograph, I'd like to ask a round of applause, not just to our speakers, but to the entire audience. Thank you so much for having us. We are stepping into SB COP with the right foot. We will continue on with the agenda. We also appreciate our online viewers, those watching us via YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to Aya once again to SB Hub, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.